Okay, you guys, so water alchemy. The DNA is made up of water molecules. The water molecules basically hold together the DNA. The DNA would literally fall apart without these water molecules. Okay, so these hydrogen bonds that are in the DNA are what hold them together. So Nassim Haramein talks about this. He is a quantum physicist and knows a lot about water. And so basically, when I was learning this concept, I was getting these downloads, and now I'm finally able to connect the dots. And now I know why I'm getting these downloads. So because the water molecule actually controls the expression of your DNA, which creates the RNA, which creates the amino acids, which creates the proteins, which creates the muscles and everything else in the body, the water molecule is really like the layer that is like the deepest layer. Like we talk about cellular healing, well, like let's go a layer deeper and go to the water in the DNA, so it's like that I like to call it the 13th layer. So basically, when you're understanding DNA activation is basically how they tell you that you have junk DNA or inactive or asleep DNA, and that it's just dormant. No, it's not just dormant. It's inactive because something in the environment shut off that DNA. It could have been trauma that shut off that DNA. And when that DNA shuts off, mutations occur, problems occur. And so DNA activation is healing our DNA. It's awakening our DNA. It is activating the dormant junk DNA. And when this DNA activates, you actually experience psychic events, telepathy, mystical experiences, higher states of consciousness. You feel like you are a God being, okay? So that is part of this foundation of everything I'm going to share with you, is that you are literally a God being, a god or a goddess, and you are ImMERtal. I don't say immortal anymore, I say ImMERtal, and I'll explain that. But what that means is that your body has the ability to rejuvenate itself, heal itself, drink from your own fountain of youth, stay alive forever, if you will. So what this means is that when you're activating your DNA, you have to create an environment for that DNA to activate. So when I'm talking about trauma affects your DNA. It mutates it, and epigenetics proves this. Epigenetics is the study of the effects of your DNA and how they mutate and what you pass on to your children. And what they found was trauma, things like fear, are actually in your DNA, and they're handed down to your children. So this brings me to the 64 codons in your DNA. So if you've ever heard of the I Ching, I'll explain it as simply as I can. So the I Ching is the study of 64 hexagrams, okay? So 64 hexagrams, in each of these hexagrams is an expression of basically a masculine and a feminine energy. So you have the yin and the yang, and the 64 hexagrams is all the different ways that it expresses itself. So the 64 hexagrams are related to the 64 codons. These are also known as the gene keys. And if you study human design, then you know the science of all this, and you'll probably connect some dots here. But basically, in these 64 codons, we have these expressions of ourselves, ways of being, higher octaves, meaning that you raise your consciousness, you reach a higher octave, a higher tone in life, a higher frequency. So in these 64 codons, they're just ways of being, they're energy, they're basically expressions of you. But because of traumatic experiences, it shuts off that expression. So you don't get to express yourself in that way. So it might be an expression of echolocation, meaning that, like, what if I actually could hear things and sense where I'm at, like sea animals do? Like, the actual way that they communicate with each other is they create clicks, and that bounces off the other objects in the water, and they know where they're at. So blind people actually have really great echolocation. This could be one of the codons in your DNA. Whatever that might be, the DNA has all these little codons that aren't being expressed, that are junk, and they're not actually turning on. So we have states of being that I don't even know until I activate them. So there's this mystery to it, right? And when we activate ourselves, we reach these higher states, the God state, the ImMERtal state. So I say ImMERtal because we are water beings. And as we activate ourselves, we go through the DNA activations. The DNA activates, and as they activate, we go back to our divine blueprint. So if you look at it like this, like we have a divine blueprint. Like all of our DNA is activated. We are higher, enlightened, activated beings. If you just imagine it's like us floating around, golden light, beautiful light in water. That is our origin. We have the origin of enlightenment. We have the origin of our divine blueprint. So this blueprint is how our DNA originally should be. But because of all the toxins, all the pollutants, all the bad things in our environment, the ways we think, the traumas that have distorted our DNA, everything just started building upon us. And trauma doesn't have to be like killing. Trauma could be fear or losing money or something that's in your DNA that was handed down in your family. And trauma is directly linked to your DNA through epigenetics. So we have science to back these theories up now. So this water alchemy theory is that because the water molecule controls the expression of the DNA, the water molecule holds together the DNA and actually controls the expression. The water molecule holds the memory of the trauma, of the toxins, of everything that has ever turned off your DNA is in the water, okay? So when you go through processes of water alchemy, you start changing, you start activating your DNA, you start changing your diet, you start changing your water, you start changing your thoughts, the way you speak to yourself, the people you're around, and that actually starts changing your alchemy in your body, and you go through a physiological chemical process that your body, the DNA starts changing. And that's water alchemy, because when we're going back to this divine blueprint, we're going back to our water being. We have a divine blueprint of being mer people. That's why I say ImMERtal, because the mer people were these beautiful water beings that used to be worshipped as gods, because we are gods, and we have all these similarities to water mammals in the ocean, dolphins and whales, and our blood is made out of the same salty content, if that makes sense. So if we look at all the similarities we have to the ocean, and what happens to us when we go to the ocean, and it actually heals us. There's ions, there's just so many beautiful things. If you go to the beach, there's a science to it. The air has salt in it. The ocean, the water releases our nervous systems. Like we hold trauma in our nervous systems, and as you relax into water, it's called aquatic body work, is when you go get Watsu done and you basically float in water, and as you float in it, you heal because there's trauma stuck in the waters in your body. But anyway, this water alchemy is so important to understand because we are originally water beings, and everything that is built on this society is an attack on our waters, because it's an attack on our DNA, okay? And if the water is DNA is water. So one thing I want to go a little bit deeper here is that water, it is proven, Nassim Haramein has a video. If you look up water Nassim Haramein, he has a video, it's like 7 minutes of him talking, and he basically talks about the water being an antenna, okay? And there's something that's controlling, it's like an energy that's controlling the expression of your DNA. So if you just imagine your DNA like water, right? Always moving, always expressing itself. Something is communicating with our DNA to create that expression. Something is sending information to the DNA The water is the receiver of that information, okay? The water is a receiver. So if you think of yourself like a channel, your soul doesn't just sit in your body like this is my soul and it's right here. Your soul is a channel, is a living liquid light of expression. We were originally light, and we came into this dimension and we started manifesting into physical form. And so when I talk about the water being the receiver of information, it's because the water is connected to this information field, okay? And so as your water receives information, that controls the expression of your DNA. But there have been distortions that are stopping this receival of information. There is an attack on our water molecules so that we can't be that antenna. We can't receive the divine information that we are meant to receive. And that's why when you go through water alchemy, you start to wake up, you start to activate your DNA, and all of a sudden you like click into that information field, and then all of a sudden you get the downloads, which is what's happening to me. And it has everything to do with the water you're drinking and the food that you're eating and the way that you talk to yourself and the environment that you're in. So important, you guys. So as you're receiving this information, there's something called the cosmic ocean. The cosmic ocean is like everything out there is water, okay? So in the Bible, it says that the waters split from the waters above and below. So if you think about it, we're in a bubble and everything else is water. That's the cosmic ocean. And they've been able to, and I say they, and I just mean like the elites, or you could even view them as us, or whatever manipulated our society, because it's pretty corrupt. They've interjected into our divine connection to our cosmic ocean. That is why we are water beings. We are ImMERtal, immortal. We can cellular regenerate ourselves. So when you connect to this cosmic ocean, there is a cosmic current. In this cosmic current, that current is communicating to you. It's moving the expression of your DNA. It is actually controlling where you're magnetized to in your life. It's like you literally jump into a current and all of a sudden life just gets really easy. And that's what I call being in alignment or being in the current. So we've disconnected from our current, and this cosmic current is made up of orgone energy. Orgone energy is the orgasmic energy, is the sexual energy. So that's why in Tantra, they say that the sexual energy is spiritual energy, because it's what connects us to that cosmic current. So water and sexuality are directly related. So what's most dormant is our sexualities. What's most distorted, what's the most darkest place of society is not only murder, but sexuality. It can get really dark because it's been so dormant for so long, so repressed. And the church has also repressed our sexualities. But if you study ancient occult text or study the knowledge, our sexuality is the secret to awakening to this connection we have, because the cosmic current is made out of that orgone energy. And so this happened to me before I actually knew what was going on. That's why I'm able to communicate to you guys in this way, because it happened to me first. So I started embodying it and I started getting the downloads and I felt this connection. And for some reason, my soul was like, follow the water. And then water started speaking to me. I found my divinity, and I'm still on that path of exploring, discovering. That's the magic of water, right? But there's so much science to it. And all we have to do is connect the dots. And when we talk about mermaids, we talk about sirens, we're connecting to that cosmic ocean. And water is a representation of the feminine. And in these ancient feminine womb religions, they studied the feminine energy because they were studying the waters above. When they looked into the sky, they studied where the moon was. And the moon controls the waters of the body, right? And if you have a very low frequency, the moon does control you. The ancients used to study the sky and see the signs. So when they studied the moon used to be called a sin. The moon was a sin because it showed us signs. And so when religion was created, basically all of the concept of being a sinner is stop worshiping the moon and go to the sun. And if you worship the moon, then you're a sinner. So they detached us from our feminine connection. That's why sexuality is so associated with the feminine, because it's a feminine energy. And sexuality is very divine. So, isn't this so beautiful? Like, oh my gosh, you guys, like, we really are mer people. And the origins and even the law system, the law of water, the Maritime Admiralty Law, is when the Catholic Church basically created this structure of banking system and the money in the world that is actually based on water. And basically the banking system and money, currency, it's all water words, right? Because it's actually affecting your energetic flow. This whole concept is about where they're siphoning your energy. And so what's empowering about this is that you get to take this back. Becoming true sovereigns is becoming this siren, also known as a mermaid. This siren is the one that sees the signs, that knows the game, that can remove themselves from the game because by what they choose to eat, drink, consume, put in their mind, how they talk to themselves, their environment. This is true self-mastery. So when you start to realize this and you start to understand or understand the water concepts, a lot of the time the process could be, well, like for me, I was angry. I was like, they control it. They've disconnected us from our feminine waters, the cosmic current from above, and we've been in this this bubble of oxidation, and I was so upset, right? But what flowed through was compassion, because water really, really represents compassion. When compassion flows through, it actually represents water. And so if we can come from a place of compassion and empower ourselves to be doing these things, we actually get to a place where all of these things can start to empower us instead of disempower us. So I hope this all made sense to you guys. If you have any questions, just email me.